Okay, so we're going to learn how to create looping, seamless GIFs or GIFs. You can refer to them however you want, whichever pronunciation. So you're going to make yours with either a fruit or a vegetable, and I'm just going to show you a couple of examples. This is some pickles running away from the fork, and you can see you can't really tell where the animation starts and it ends. So it's completely seamless, that it's continuously able to play, and you can't tell what the beginning and the end is. And here's another one with an avocado. And you can see where the frame stops and starts with the arms up like that. It really creates a seamless, continuous movement throughout, so you can watch it over and over again and have it looping. Here's another one with an orange. And this is a good example of just having a really simple prop. And that helps add a lot to it. I also think the shadow getting smaller creates a nice effect, and that's a simple thing that you can create with your animation. And then here's some other great food ones. You can see the broccoli is really simple, but you get a lot out of it. He's holding the little prop and it's going into his mouth, and then it's just continuously working. So you could do anything like this to create yours. So I'm just going to show you these. We're going to use some brushes in Photoshop. We're going to do this entire thing in Photoshop, and you can download some of these Kyle T. Webster brushes for free, and they're really great. That you can just Google it or go to this website on Adobe, and you can download them and put them into Photoshop. It's really easy to download brushes, and you don't have to pay for these really nice ones. So I recommend definitely getting the Mega Pack. That's mostly what I'll be using, and there's other ones too that you can try. So it's definitely a good thing to try. Okay, so we're going to start in Photoshop and make a new file. And yours is going to be maximum 1000 by 1000 pixels with a resolution of 72, so you can use it for web. And you can make yours a rectangle. It doesn't have to be a square. Just make sure the biggest side is 1000 and create. So I just wanted to show you, I'm going to zoom in a little bit by doing Command plus. I just want to show you how I start my drawings in Photoshop, or my designs in Photoshop. I'm going to make a new layer and I'm going to call it Sketch. And I have all of these brushes. You can see this Mega Pack here, and I have a lot that I've downloaded. And the Mega Pack has some great oil painting brushes in there, and I like the gouache pack too. I think that creates a lot of nice texture. So then I create libraries in Photoshop that I can use throughout my Adobe programs, and I put the brushes that I use the most in my libraries, and I can use them on my iPad and I can use them in other programs as well. So I recommend taking the time to create some libraries. I also create libraries of colors as well. So like this one, I found some sci-fi vintage posters from old sci-fi movies online, and I just dragged those files into Photoshop, and I used the eyedropper tool right here to pick out those colors and create some color palettes. And I use these over and over again. I have one from the 60s that I took 1960s advertisements and I brought them into Photoshop, did the same thing with the eyedropper. And I also have one that I use a lot is the national parks. Vintage posters are really beautiful, and they have these great colors in them. So I suggest taking some time to set up libraries that work for you. So I'm going to come into my painting brushes that I use all the time. These are all Kyle T. Webster brushes that I downloaded for free. And to sketch, I usually start with just a pretty big brush. And I'm going to pick a color, an avocado color. And to make the brush bigger, you use the right bracket key. And to make it smaller, use the left bracket key. So that's a good key command to learn. And I'm using a tablet with a pen. So I just start sketching out my idea really loosely. And I'm not worried about getting it perfect at all. If I want a darker color for a shadow or for the skin, I double click on here and I just pick the color that's directly down from the color I'm using, because that will give me a darker shade of that color, and I can maybe make my brush a little smaller and I can start to add some skin on one side. And I'm really just keeping it really loose and getting my ideas down. And then maybe I want to do the pit or the seed for this one. Oops, got to double click on that to get the color. And maybe this isn't the right color I'm going to use, and maybe it's not perfect, but I'm just getting my ideas down. And then I want to decide where the face is going to be. So I'm going to pick another brush to draw the details, and I have another library that's my drawing brushes, and there's some brushes that look like a pencil, look like all different kinds of things. So I think that's really helpful to have some saved. And I'm going to pick maybe a dark gray color. If you have your swatches open, which you can open by going to Window up here and check swatches, then all of the colors that you've used recently will show up in this top row, and when you're in your brush you can just pick on the one you want to use. So I want my face to be up here because my idea is that the avocado will be playing the drum, as his seed will be like the drum that he's playing, and then I want to think about where the arms would be coming out of. And maybe another arm would be coming out of here. And my style is super sketchy and loose, and you might have a really clean style and not like this. So I want you to find your way of working that makes sense for you. But remember, this is just the sketch I'm getting my idea down as quickly as possible. And then I also want to make some drumsticks, which I think would be like a yellow color. So, and that's it. That's my first sketch. So then I'm going to come and make another layer on top of that, and I'm going to call it body. I'm going to come into my sketch layer and lower the opacity. And that's just going to be like on the background. And now I'm going to come into the body layer and I'm going to really refine it. So I'm going to come back into my painting brushes. And I think I want to use this one. I'm going to pick my avocado color. And now I'm going to probably zoom in and refine the edges, make it look exactly how I want it to look. And if you want yours super clean, you can make a shape with a selection and fill it in. But I think this painting is kind of a fun technique to learn. It's fast and it can be loose, and this is a fun kind of project, so it doesn't have to be perfect. And I'm going to take a darker green. I'm going to make my brush smaller with the left bracket key, and I'm going to come in and get the skin of the avocado, and maybe I want it to be a little more textured. So I'm going to pick a different brush. Find a brush with way more texture. There we go. So this one so you can pick a brush that has the texture that's appropriate for what you're creating. So the avocado skin is a little bumpy, so I'm picking a brush that has kind of this bumpy texture. So it's a quick way, these brushes are a quick way of getting texture in there and making your art look awesome. And then I'm going to get even darker for a shadow, so I'm going to come in here and go maybe to almost black, and maybe get some darker color in here as a shadow, and we're going to blend it in, so you'll see what that looks like in a minute. Get that edge in there. And then maybe I want some highlights, so I'm going to go back to the green, and then I'm going to pick a lighter version of that. And maybe there'll be some highlights around here, just getting them in there really quickly. I'm going to come back to my avocado color, and you'll get a little bit of a darker color version of that, and come in and add, I'm going to make my brush a little bigger just to make it look more realistic. And then I need the seed. So I'm going to take this brown color and I want the seed to kind of be coming out like that and filling it in. And then I'm going to get a darker version, fill that in on the edges to make the shadow. And I'm going to go back to the mid-tone color, get a lighter version to make some highlights. And then I'm going to come into my darker green and make some dark green around the edges there. So I've got my mid-tone color, I've got some shadows and some highlights in there, and you can spend as much time as you want doing this. And then what I do want to show you is some blending. So in the oils, in Kyle Webster's Mega Pack, there's a folder that says Real Oils, and these two mixers are in there that I use all the time. The first one is the Oil Deluxe Big Canvas, and this one uses whatever color is in your foreground and mixes it in. So make it a little smaller and you can see it's looking like what actual oil paint looks like, and it's really blending those colors together in a nice way. And then I'm going to switch to the brown and I'm going to get these all blended in. And you don't have to blend, but you can blend as much or as little as you want. And then I'm going to get that green and get these blended in. And then you can use this bristle blender, does not use the foreground color, it just blends what's already there. So it can really soften these edges. And then you can take time and come back with a different brush, get that gouache one again, and get the edges really cleaned up. So usually I blend, I get the highlights, shadows, midtones down, I blend it in a little bit, and then I come back and clean up the edges, and then I'll zoom in and blend it in more. So I want you to get the body of your character really worked out, spend time getting that worked out, and we're going to copy and paste it over and over again. And then you have that body on one layer, and then you can see what it looks like without the sketch, and then make another layer for the details, like for mine it's going to be the limbs and the face. So I'm going to take one of my drawing brushes, I like this one, and I'm going to use either the dark green or the black, and I can't see my face so well, so I'm going to move my sketch layer up so I can get a look at that. And I'm going to make my brush a little smaller and make sure you're on the right layer. So I'm clicking on the details layer and getting that in. And so this doesn't have to be super detailed. And if you have props, like I have these drumsticks here, and I'm going to make those on a separate layer because they're always going to be moving around, but they're always going to be kind of the same size. So I don't want to have to redraw them every time. I am going to redraw the hands, the arms, and the legs because they're really going to move and change a lot. But the drumsticks I think are going to stay pretty much the same. So I'm going to make a new layer, call that drumsticks. And I'm going to grab this yellow color and just draw those. So now these I'll show you how we would just copy and paste them over and over again. So I'm in the drumsticks layer. This is where I want them to be. I'm going to copy, Command or Control C, Command or Control V. And I'm going to keep one layer at the top. So I'm going to use my move tool. I'm going to zoom out a little bit. And I'm going to keep this layer kind of off to the side. And then this layer, I'm going to combine with the details, you know, the arms and the legs. So those are on the same layer together, so we don't get super crazy with a ton of layers. So I'm going to press Shift. So both of these layers are selected. I'm right clicking and I'm merging layers, and it will keep the name of whatever layers on the top. So each frame of your animation is going to end up being one layer, and we're gonna build them on separate layers, and then we're gonna move them into another document, another Photoshop document, and merge those layers like we just did with the drumsticks and the details. So I want you to keep, you're gonna have two Photoshop documents for this, one with all of your layers in it, and then one with just the single layer that it will work for each frame. If this isn't making sense right now, maybe just watch the video and you'll see what I mean by that. So this is going to be my first frame, how my animation is going to start. Rename this 1 and keep these in numerical order because it will make your life a lot easier. So I'm going to call this 1 body, 1 details. And then I'm going to duplicate the body and just change it slightly for each frame. So when you copy and paste, rather than duplicate, I'm going to show you the difference. Command or Control C, Command or Control V. It calls it the same exact thing in the layer, and see how it moved the copy. This is the copy. It moved it pretty far away from where the original was. So I'm going to do Command or Control Z to undo that. And I'm going to right click on this and I'm going to go to Duplicate Layer. Now this pops up so I can rename the layer, which is handy, and I'm going to call it 2 because this is going to be my second frame of the animation, and press OK. And you can see, let me make the first one, I'm going to make it a little more transparent so you can see what's happening. So you can see it placed the second copy exactly on top of the first one, which is what we want because we just want to move it slightly for the animation. So I'm going to drag that up. I'm going to press Command or Control T to get this transform box, and I'm just going to alter it slightly. And you can maybe move it down. You can use the arrow keys to just nudge it a little bit. And then I'm going to make another layer for the details. So I'm going to call this 2 details. And I'm going to make these details a little bit more transparent so I can see what I'm working on. I'm going to come into my 2 details, and maybe I'll make the body a little transparent too so I can see underneath. So I'm in the second layer of details, and we're going to just add a little bit of movement. So I want my black color because I'm just working on the legs and the face, and I'm in my brush tool, and maybe the arms, so it's moved down a little bit, so maybe the arms will start down here. And maybe they go down like that. And maybe this arm goes up a little bit. You know, you're just going to make slight movements for each one. And the avocado, she's bent forward a little bit and moved down a little bit. So maybe the legs are bent a little more. And maybe this one's more like that. So you're just making slight adjustments. And then for the drumsticks, I have this layer that I've created that's up top here. So I'm going to Command or Control C, Command or Control V, and I'm going to place it underneath the details. Okay, so I have the drumsticks layer. I'm in my quick selection tool, and I'm going to click on that. I'm going to hold Option, and you can see the cursor turning to a negative. You can also pick the negative brush up here because I just want one of them. So I'm holding Option and deselecting this one. So just one is selected. And then I'm in my Move tool, and I can move it, and I can press Command or Control T to transform, and I can rotate it so it's in the exact spot I want it to be. And then I can do Command or Control D to deselect, come back to my quick selection and grab this one. If it picked up both by accident, just hold Option and deselect the one you don't want. Then I come to my move tool, which is V on the keyboard. I move it to where I want it, and if I want it angled differently, I can do Command or Control T and rotate it a little bit. And then press return and deselect by Command or Control D to deselect. So you can see it left a little bit of an outline, which is okay. You can just come into your eraser and erase that. That's totally fine if that happens to yours when you make your selection. So I'm gonna merge the drumsticks that I just did, and you can turn the eye on and off to make sure they're the right layer, with the details so that we don't have a million layers. So I'm clicking on one, holding shift, clicking on the other layer, right clicking and merging those layers. So now you can see, oh, and I forgot the face. So it's good to turn off layers and see what you've actually done. So I'm going to come back into my brush tool, and you can make the eyes blink. You're going to spend a lot more time on yours. I think making just even little adjustments adds a lot. And you can obviously clean these up. I'm doing it really fast, so you can use the eraser. And these brush packs have a lot of great erasers in them too, so you can create nice edges when you're erasing. So take your time, and you're going to just repeat this process for each layer. Now I'm going to come in, I have another one that I've worked on, and I have all my layers open here, and I have a background color that I've chosen. I would suggest for yours that maybe you do some kind of shadow or something happening here. So these are all my layers. The limbs and the body, the details in the body are on separate layers, and we want to keep this intact, but this isn't going, all of these layers aren't going to work for the animation. So we need to duplicate this. So make sure you save your PSD, your Photoshop file, with all the layers that you need, so you can come back and make changes if you want to. And then we're going to go to Image, Duplicate, and you can call it Copy, or you can call it whatever the name of your file, Animate. So that we're working on the copy, and we still have all of those layers preserved. So you're going to come in here, and I'm going to delete the layers I don't need, like these extra drumsticks I had that were just hanging out that I was copying and pasting. I can delete that. I think I had some extra drumsticks down here, and I have the sketch I don't need. But I do need the background on each layer, because each layer is going to become a frame. So I need to merge the limbs and the body. I'm going to turn everything off except the ones I'm working on so I can see what's happening. I need to merge the limbs and the body and the background. So the three layers are going to merge together to make one layer, and that's going to create one frame. Now I've made a lot of mine transparent, so I need to turn the opacity up. Make sure the opacity is on 100 on both layers, and I'm going to merge with the background, but I want a copy of the background because I need to use the background over and over again. So I'm on the background, I'm Command or Control C, Command or Control V to make sure I have a copy, and then I'm holding Shift. So these three layers, and I can turn the eye off on everything else, are selected, and I'm right clicking and merging layers. And it's going to be called whatever the top layer is. So just make sure it has the number in it so you know it's the correct number. Now I'm copying the background, copy, paste, bringing it up to the second one. I'm turning off the eye on the first one, and I'm checking out these. The opacity needs to be turned up. Opacity needs to be turned up. Put the background on. That looks good. I'm holding Shift, so all of these are selected. Right click, merge layers. Turn this off. Copy, paste the background, bring it up, turn these on, make sure the opacity is up, those look good. Hold Shift to select, right click, merge layers. Turn this off, copy, paste the background, bring it up. Need to turn the opacity up on this. Opacity looks good on that. Hold Shift, select, right click, merge layers. I'm going to grab the copy and paste the background, bring it up here, check out these. We need to turn the opacity up. and click on one, hold shift, so all three are selected, merge those layers. So this is one of those designer things that's just a time-consuming thing that you will get used to. You can have on whatever kind of music you want, copying and paste the background, and selecting, merge layers. And let me get the opacity up on these. And I have my last one. This is my last one. You're gonna have at least 10, so I can merge the background for this. So merge layers. So now we have 6 layers. Oh no, and this one I forgot legs. Terrible. So let me just turn the opacity down and turn the limbs on for the last one. And I'm just quickly gonna draw legs in here. So this is at this last stage, you can also be checking to see if you made any mistakes and if you need to add anything. So it looks like it came forward a little bit. And you can just still be making some adjustments here if you need. Okay, let me just turn the opacity back up. See how that looks. So I'm going to press Command or Control 0 to have the image fill the entire screen. You can turn the eyes off like this to get an idea of what's happening, because each layer will be its own frame. So you can kind of get an idea and make sure everything looks okay. Obviously, you're going to add more to yours. So next step, to make the animation, we can do this all in Photoshop because Photoshop has a timeline in it. So you come to Window, Timeline, and there's a drop down here. Just make sure it's Create Frame Animation. You click on that. And then this option here, it's in the timeline. It's like the little 4-lined option menu. You come up here and make frames from layers. So this is going to make a frame for each layer. That's why we merged them all. So you can see I have 6, and you can play it, and you can also make it a little slower. So I'm clicking on the first frame, I'm holding shift and clicking on the last one, so each one is selected. There's this little drop down arrow here, and I'm going to make it 0.1 seconds. So you can try that. And then another important thing is you want this drop down to be selected on forever, so it keeps looping over and over. So you can test it out. Now, if you're missing some stuff or you want to add more layers, you can come back into your Photoshop document with all of the layers in it. You can add more, and you can just take 2 layers to bring them over and maybe hold the background too. So I'm pressing Command or Control and selecting the background. So now these 3 layers are selected. I'm right clicking, I'm duplicating the layers, and I can select the document destination to the animation document. And those layers have just been duplicated into this new document. So I can merge them and adjust them here and then bring them into my timeline. So I think that's a helpful way of doing it. I think it's really important to have the 2 documents that you're working on so you can make adjustments and you don't have to start all over again. Okay, so to save, you're going to go to File, Export, Save for Web Legacy. You're going to open that up, and you're going to select here GIF or GIF, whatever you want to call it. Just make sure it's that. And the looping options should be forever. So just those are the 2 things. You want this and forever. And then you can save it and save it into the M drive, and you can upload it to social media. You can put it on your website. You can do whatever you want with it. And it will be looping over and over again, just like the ones we looked at the beginning. All right, so have fun with that and good luck.